hashtag love to know. But this week we're going to talk about the Radicals, and it was really a big time in wrestling and a big coup at the time for four guys to jump like this without it being the end of a territory necessarily. But a lot of people would say this is kind of the beginning of the end. So we're going to talk about those four respective guys, who else may have been considered or wasn't really considered, and what happened with their careers. We do get into some touchy stuff, I'm sure. You can't really avoid it with Guerrero and Benoit. But before we do, let's get on something else that's a little touchy. You kind of, I don't know, upset some people last week with your talk about dirt sheets that a lot of people believe is an outdated term and isn't really, there's not really an internet fan, there's just fans, and there's not really a smart mark. They all are now. Everybody's kind of inside. So anyway, Dave Meltzer's not done with you. Have you heard about this?
No, but I'm sure you're going to tell me. I'm sure you're loaded for bear. I really don't care what Dave Meltzer has to say. Look, like I said before, Dave's a nice guy. Dave does his thing. I don't agree with the way that he reports things at times. I don't agree with what he says. And so I choose not to participate. I don't go to his site. I don't read his stuff. And I'm sure that he doesn't listen to my stuff either. I'm sure he gets whatever he hears about me secondhand, and I doubt that he listens as well. So, sure, go ahead.
Well, for the record, because of my relationship with Rick, I can personally attest that Dave Meltzer isn't right 100% of the time. There's no reason for me to name specific incidents, but he's reported stuff this year that was incorrect. But that doesn't necessarily mean...
Oh, my God, Conrad. Okay, folks, it's at Hey, it's Conrad on Twitter.
Yeah.
Okay, so direct all your little comments to at Hey, it's Conrad on Twitter.
Now, to be fair, I've also said pretty consistently, I've subscribed to the Observer for more than half my life. So half of this show is me arguing Dave Meltzer knowledge that I've gotten from his newsletter against your WWE rhetoric.
It's not rhetoric. It's simply I'm giving you what took place from my vantage point. And, it's funny. We've talked about this off of the podcast before. And people talk about, well, I'm towing the company line.
Right.
And I am applying for a job to go back there. You know what I'm doing. I'm happy with what I'm doing. And it's simply funny to me that people want me to not, but I did.
Yeah.
But I was a part of.
Right.
So for 22 years of my life, it was horrible. Again, that's silly in and of itself. I was a part of it. I was a part of the decision making. I was a part of the creative.
So a lot of that is not just defending Vince so much as it is defending part of your idea.
It's defending me. It's
right.
Defending Vince. It's defending the product that I helped create.
Right.
So, you want to blame somebody, blame me. But I'm proud of my body of work. I think I had a hell of a run. I think I had a pretty good track record. I had some stinkers. So, but I think overall, I did all right in 2 years.
So, we got to plug my great friend, Mr. Bruce Mitchell. Bruce Mitchell also...
You might want to plug him.
He crapped on his podcast at the Torch.
And I've never crapped on him. I might have...
I mean, Greensboro Jackal.
Okay, well...
He admitted to that, though.
Okay.
This week on the Ric Flair
show. So I didn't say anything that wasn't true.
No, he owned that. So anyway, let's get to Dave Meltzer, our Lord and Savior of all things wrestling news online.
Not mine, but
okay. Dashing Dylan on Twitter tweeted him and says he was at Bruce Pritchard. He was very serious. He hates Dave Meltzer for some reason. This guy always gives Vince's corporate line.
Dashing Dave Miller.
No, Dashing Dylan.
Dashing Dylan.
Anyway,
hates Dave Meltzer.
No. He's saying you do.
And have you ever heard those words come out of your mouth?
No, you've always said that you thought he was a nice guy.
I always have.
Okay, anyway, Meltzer is quick to respond on Twitter and says, con men are supposed to hate me. That's been a given for 35 years.
So he's referring to me as a con man. I guess it takes a con man to know a con man. I don't know.
Bears fan on Twitter asks, can you explain what you mean by con man? Meltzer replies, con man, BS artists, the old wrestling business was proliferated by them.
Well, you know what? I have spent 43 years actually getting a payday and working within the business itself. And and helping to create it and work within it. So if that makes me a con man because I've made a living doing what I love, then I guess I'm guilty.
Jason Adams on Twitter says, there's no way you can honestly believe the things you were saying, so good job on that. And
Who's that?
Just nobody.
To me or to... That I can't honestly believe what I'm honestly saying?
He's replying to another tweet. I'm getting to what Dave Meltzer's response is.
Gotcha. I'm sorry. It's tough to follow.
Meltzer's response is, don't sweat it. He, talking about you, got mad because he thinks WrestleMania drew 100K. Not sure after KPIs came out what the excuse was. He also said another con man tweet. Don't get hot at fools. I just laughed them off. Business of con man, and some believe the con man. So I'm a big-time Dave Meltzer mark. We've covered that pretty extensively here on the show, and he actually has a message board that I participate in, and it's called The Board, and I recommend it for every wrestling fan who's interested in wrestling.
I don't, but I've never been there, so I can't recommend it.
Well, here's what I've never done. You did another podcast, asshole, and these guys asked you about the WrestleMania attendance, and...
they asked me, no, hang on, did you listen to the whole thing?
I'm not listening to you cheat on me.
Okay. So, no, what they asked me was they asked me about something, again, reported that apparently Dave had reported several different official attendance records. He reported 3 different numbers or something like that.
And you don't know that. You're saying these guys told you that.
Yes.
Because you don't read these.
Several people. I don't.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
I don't. So I'm getting my information secondhand, just like the wrestling journalists. Is that better for you? If I call them wrestling journalists?
Well, you're just being condescending now, but we'll go with it.
No, I'm asking you a serious question. Is that better for you?
Well, so let me run through what he said.
Wait, okay, well, let me finish.
Well, you're taking forever.
Well, I'm sorry.
It is the Bruce Prichard show.
He's
Continue.
trying to take everything out of context. And simply they had talked about how he had reported. When you talk about attendance and you talk about how many people are in a building, you know, that's how many people are in the building. How many people are in attendance? I wasn't talking about tickets sold. I wasn't talking about how many people were there. And again, when you state 3 different times, well, this is the official attendance. Well, this is the official attendance. Well, this is the official attendance. Or this is going to happen. I have on very good authority. This is going to happen this Monday night on Raw. But then when it doesn't happen, well, because I reported it, they changed it.
Just so you know, so you know, Meltzer's never done that I know of.
Okay.
He's never said,
all right,
this Monday this is going to happen.
Okay.
All right. You clearly disagree. I'm not saying that some people don't say that, but I'm saying that's not Meltzer's style.
Okay.
Okay. So let me. So he responds to what you said in that podcast.
Okay.
And this is where I was like, wow.
Did he listen to the whole podcast? Did he listen to
ours?
No, did he listen to the whole podcast that I did?
Probably.
On Your Opinion Doesn't Matter?
What are you doing right now? Okay. So he says, does that loser realize that any WrestleMania number prior to 2003 I got directly from WWE itself when I did the 2001 article on the biggest gates in company history, and they gave me the 2002 number directly before gates started dropping across the board, and Vince told his staff to not give me numbers anymore, and even then I was still getting them indirectly from their internal reports.
So he's getting hearsay from someone within the company that he hearsay has been told they're not supposed to give him. And I'm a loser because...
I don't know why I called you a loser.
So he's calling me a con man and a loser.
Yep.
And I said he was a nice guy. I don't agree with what he writes.
Yep, that's accurate.
Okay.
He also called him a dirt sheet writer and called his newsletter little. Okay. So? Well, I'm just saying. So anyway.
And at what time did I ever attack him personally?
Never.
And call him names?
Never.
To the contrary, what have I said about it?
You said he's a nice guy. You said he's a nice guy.
So who's the asshole here? Am I the asshole? Am I the asshole calling people names?
I mean, I think half the people listening think you're the asshole.
You know what? I'm sure more than half the people think I'm an asshole. Well, I am an asshole.
I read somebody saying online this week.
You love this, don't you?
Well, this one.
You know, folks. When I'm at home, Conrad will send me text messages of all the nasty things.
Not all.
Most.
A great one I saw this week. I forgot to send you. Talking about yourself and your brother. I would take a bullet for Tom.
Oh, I've heard that before. Jesus Christ. I'd put a bullet in Bruce. Great. Hip, hip, hooray. Go for it.
So seriously, what's your response to that?
I have no response to that. Well, again, people that don't know me have never done what I've done. You know, I was the guy.
Not the bullet. I mean, Meltzer saying that he got the numbers directly from WWE itself.
He said before 2002 or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, did he get the number? Did he get the number of WrestleMania, this last WrestleMania in AT&T Stadium, directly from Vince?
No.
Okay. So what the hell is he saying?
Well, okay.
He's saying that he has a source that he won't name.
All right.
That's allegedly in WWE.
Well, he can't name them.
Well, again, look.
I mean, you get he can't name them.
Why?
Because they get fired.
Journalists name their sources all the time. A lot of them don't. The ones that have something to hide, they don't. But again, if you can't verify it, and you can't verify a source, and you won't, then again, I'm done with the argument at that point.
Okay. Let me just read you this.
And my point in the podcast was simply that when the WWE, a publicly traded company, puts out numbers in a press release stating something, that with the SEC, you know, legally you can't do that. It's against the law.
Right.
So he's accusing them of breaking the law.
I'm going to move on. He also posted in your thread. I don't know. I know you probably hate the idea here, but
In my thread of what?
You have a thread on the Wrestling Observer message board. The Bruce Pritchard podcast on MLW is the topic, and when you click on it, several pages in, he sees me addressing, listeners because I'm trying to interact, and it really is a good board. And Dave posted in there, which I thought, wow, okay. And he says, if you're going to read the report, add this in. When I asked Vince why the number at WrestleMania and the WWE's own computer numbers for the shows were different, he told me the numbers in the computer were real and the numbers announced were quote-unquote for entertainment purposes only.
So he talked to Vince after this past WrestleMania in AT&T.
No, well...
So again, you've asked me what he apparently has asked you to ask me. So I'm asking you. So he spoke to Vince after this past WrestleMania and got the specific name. No, hang on. We're talking about two different things here. So I'm saying that WWE reporting what they reported to their stockholders, and a wrestling journalist, mimeographed paper, that shows how old I am, back mimeograph.
I don't know what that is.
Reported 3 different numbers of his official numbers. And again, that's allegedly told to me secondhand. But again, so he's saying he talked to Vince after this WrestleMania.
He also says, he said any numbers on television, he is Vince. So I'll change he to Vince. Vince then said any number on television is meant to be part of the show, so those were Vince's words.
I'm sure those are Vince's words.
Let me ask you, were you ever involved in creating the number?
In creating and guessing a number for overall attendance, yes.
I love you.
Hang on. Okay, I'm messing up. I just answered your question.
Yeah.
Was I ever involved in the number? Yes. I also was involved in looking at the reports at the end of the night and knowing exactly what we sold, what we had comps, and what was paid and taxes paid on that. Okay? And over the years, those numbers, official numbers that were reported to athletic commissions and reported in tax documents that they paid taxes on, were different than the, quote, the real numbers that were reported in different wrestling journalistic crap shit, whatever the hell you call them.
I call it the Wrestling Observer newsletter.
Whatever.
So you created the numbers?
Did I create numbers? No. You take the numbers and you take how many people are in a building, and that's called capacity. That's called attendance. So attendance and capacity, there's actually two different things.
Well, all right, so let's run through this. There's always been...
An attendance number is how many people are in the building. How many people are in attendance? Right?
So you're counting...
So let's say you've got a building that holds 1,000 people.
Okay.
Let's say you have 200 workers that work there. Let's say that the production that you have has another 150. That's the attendance, pal. What's the attendance, pal? That's the attendance of that event.
I'm not arguing that, but what Dave often reports is the number of tickets sold as a measure of business.
And I'm telling you that over the years, his reported numbers and the numbers that were actually drawn, actually paid on, they were different.
Are you telling me that every time you guys announce the number on television, the WWE pay taxes on that amount?
Didn't say that.
I'm asking you a fucking question.
Well, no, I didn't say that.
Okay, so will you answer what I just said? Thank you for listening to Something to Wrestle With. The number is reported on television.
The number on television is the attendance.
So it's not...
That's what we said, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about, the attendance.
Yeah.
When, I did see this, where someone had a picture that said, there's only 70,000 people that can even be held in the 18th state.
Well, that's because there's no field seating.
Well, here's the factors. 70,000 people.
That's for a Cowboys game. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
The people who say that are getting that number based on what the selling price is. But this is different. You got people on the field. Okay. I feel like we're saying the same thing. You just want to be hot about it.
I'm very hot about it.
Well, we just need to put a bow on this and get to the radicals. Dave Meltzer has said that you're a con man, insinuated that you're a liar, you're a BS artist, and that you're a loser.
Okay.
Any official retort?
Well, I guess, again, to be able to identify those things, I guess he must associate very well with all of those things. I've never said anything bad about Dave.
That feels like no, I'm not, you are.
No.
Response.
I guess if he knows what that is. Dave doesn't know me. Talked to him on the phone, several times. I have no personal relationship with him. He doesn't know me. He's never done my job. He's never been in the places I've been in. He knows nothing about me. Zero. He knows things he's heard from other people.
Right.
That's all he knows. He knows that he can't sit there and say that the relationship that we had when we talked on the phone over the years was ever a bad one.
Right.
He can't say I ever lied to him. He can't say that I was ever dishonest with him in any way, shape, or form, that I didn't, that I ever treated him disrespectfully in any way, shape, or form. So I'm not going to get, sitting here and go, oh, you called me a loser. Well, you're a bigger loser.
Okay.
I'm not going to resort to that. 53 years old. You think I give a shit what anybody thinks of me? I sound like somebody we both know and love.
Yes, you do.
I'm really too old for that.
Be sure to catch the Ric Flair Show Wednesdays here on MLW Radio. He's 67 and he could give a blank.
Exactly.
Well, you're going to give a blank about the Radicals. That's what we're really here for. Man, we spent a lot of time.
I forgot all about that. I guess we got a show to do about what happened when.
That's right. On the other side of the break, what you really came for, the main event. It's our longest show ever. I guarantee it after this 30-minute intro. Hashtag what happened when the Radicals jumped ship from WCW to the WWF? Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back. Something to wrestle with Bruce Pritchard here on MLW Radio. All right, Bruce, now it's time to talk about our friends over at Dollar Shave Club. And here's the deal, guys. You don't need to choose between price and quality to get an amazing and an affordable shave. DollarShaveClub.com's the answer you've been looking for. To prove how amazing their shave really is, right now they're going to give you your very first month for free just to join the club.
That's right, for free. And DollarShaveClub.com delivers great razors right to your door for a third of the price that those, the greedy razor companies do. And it comes to your door. You don't have to go to the store and deal with the locker, and you got to find somebody with a key to get your razor blades. No. I mean, seriously, I have no reason to deal with those guys at the drugstore. I just go to my mailbox and it's there when I need them.
And all you've got to do is go to DollarShaveClub.com and pick a razor that works for you. They've got a lineup of amazing blades. That really is all there is to it. I get a first-class shave when I use the executive blade. And when I use it with their Dr. Carver shave butter, the blade just gently glides to make the smoothest shave ever.
I absolutely love the shave butter. It takes getting used to. Okay, it took me 2 days. But it's a lot better than shaving cream, and it's really great. I'm not just saying that.
So here's the deal. You can look, smell, and shave like $1 million without paying for it. Here's all you've got to do. You've got to go check out one of the 3 million members, like me, like Bruce, all we know, and that's to love the Dollar Shave Club. Dollar Shave Club is so confident in the quality of all their products, now you can get, listen closely, your first month of the club for free. All you've got to do is pay for the shipping. It's free. It's free. Just pay the shipping to get it to you, and after that, it's a few bucks a month. No long term, no hidden fees. There's no reason not to do it. Get yours at DollarShaveClub.com/wrestling. DollarShaveClub.com/wrestling. Hello, something to wrestle with. If you enjoyed the show, support the show. You gotta shave anyway. Why not shave at DollarShaveClub.com/wrestling. Now back to more something to wrestle with. All right, welcome back to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard right here on MLW Radio. And now it's time for the main event, a segment we like to call What Happened When? And this week we're covering something that I think is underrated. And I'm excited to talk about it, especially because of all the guys involved.
You are so happy that this subject was chosen this week.
Well, and here's why. I did campaign for it on the Wrestling Observer message board, which I know it's a tweet about, but I did. But I did because you suggested, I tried. Several months ago, you told me this story, and it's one of the reasons I first pitched you on doing a podcast, because we sat and talked about this for more than an hour, and I was just fascinated by every little detail, and I thought, God, man, if wrestling nerds like me could hear this, this would be a fucking awesome podcast. And now it is. It's something to wrestle with, and we're telling the exact story that kind of triggered me into thinking, I wouldn't have even thought this would be that interesting, but it is. So let's talk about, what's going on and kind of lay the backstory, I guess. This all starts with a group in WCW that's formed in July of 1999 called The Revolution. And the concept of these guys is they feel like the old guys are holding them down, and they're trying to take their spot, and they're going to finally demand a push. And they're baby faces. They're Chris Benoit, they're Dean Malenko, they're Shane Douglas, and they're Perry Saturn. Fast forward, obviously 1999 and 2000 WCW is just, crazy at the time, flip-flopping bookers and directions left and right. Mid-2000, they have their sold-out pay-per-view, and it's right after they had announced that Kevin Sullivan is going to take over as the booker. They had been flip-flopping the book back and forth. Kevin Sullivan obviously had a history with Chris Benoit, whether you believe that it was a work that turned into a shoot or a shoot that turned into a work or whatever. Nancy Sullivan, and correct me where I'm wrong here, Bruce, was portraying the woman character. She was with Kevin Sullivan. On camera, it became a thing either after or before it was a thing in real life. Do you know the timetable on that?
I don't.
So now Nancy Sullivan is with Chris Benoit, and they have some interesting interactions on pay-per-view and on television, a great series of matches. And that all happens in like 96, 97. Now we're into 2000, and it's a real thing. Benoit is now with Nancy, and she has divorced Kevin, and they're together. And to show that Kevin is not going to have a bias, I suppose, is the rumors and innuendo, or me playing connect the dots on my end. He books Chris Benoit to beat Sid Vicious for the world title, the big gold belt, at this pay-per-view on January 16th in Cincinnati, sold out. But just in case, they have Sid stick his foot under the rope in case for whatever reason they need to get out of it, because at the time there's a lot of unrest. And in the year prior to this, there had been so much unrest that Bischoff holds a meeting and says, hey, if you're not happy, you can leave. And Raven takes him up on it. So there's a lot of guys who just want out. It's clear the WWF has won now. WCW is trying to play catch-up ball. They're scrambling. And now Benoit finds himself world champion, but he's working for a booker that he doesn't really trust because of his real-life personal situation. So now I've tried to set the stage here, but you were there. How do you...
Well, I was in WWF. I wasn't at WCW.
But you were there when the call comes. A call comes, a text comes, a fax, an email. What's that look like when you first hear, hey, wait a minute, something's up?
Well, I want to say we were doing TV in New Haven, but I really don't remember the particulars. And I got a call from Perry Saturn, was the one who called me and contacted me. And I stepped outside of a production meeting. I took the phone call, and Perry explained to me what had taken place the night before. I had not seen the pay-per-view, WCW pay-per-view the night before. He told me, Benoit won the title, that Kevin Sullivan was in charge, and that they being the talent, WCW had been offered releases if they wanted releases. And that himself, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Benoit were getting their releases and wanted out and wanted to know if we were interested in it.
And who's making the call here?
This was Perry Saturn.
Okay.
Perry made the initiative.
Okay.
And I told Perry that he was under contract, couldn't see him.
Did you have Perry's number from ECW back in the day when y'all put stuff together?
Well, I knew Perry, yeah. And I
How did you know Perry?
from ECW.
Okay.
Yeah, from ECW.
Okay.
And I talked to Perry before. I was a fan of him. And we had to check the number. So when he called, I was very satisfied. And
Where were you when you got the call?
and I walked out and took the call, but I told him to protect us from any legal issue that we would have to have something from Turner that stated that they were either released or that they could get something that said that we could talk to them about contracts.
Something to see why.
And, we had gotten in trouble with CW tampering last thing what we wanted to do was get caught in any kind of a tampering issue with anybody from the other side. So
I was shocked for you to hear that Benoit was on the list.
I was pretty shocked that all four of them were on the list, frankly. But they faxed over a release. Very cool. Faxed over to the offices and got it done. Got it right down to the lawyer. Looked at it. Yep, it's on the up and up. And we can talk to them.
So to put this in perspective, this is literally the day after Benoit wins the world title.
Less
the
than
very
24
first
hours.
time. This is Monday, January 17th. He won the belt the night before, and he's already calling for a new belt. When Perry calls, does he lay out any detail?
Well, explained that everybody was offered their release, and that those four guys were best friends, traveled together, they ate together, they played together, they did everything together. And all four of them wanted to come, and he made it a point to let me know that if we didn't have anything or Dean or Eddie to take Benoit. And every single guy to the man made that same statement. All four of those guys, of course, all four of the other three guys all made it a point to say, hey, if you're not interested in us, please do something. And I guess they felt that Chris was kind of in a Sullivan and Nancy and everything.
Yeah.
And what Chris really wanted out.
So let me ask you this. We're going to get into a lot of this stuff here, but lots of talk, and Mike Graham admitted to it before he passed away, that he made a veiled threat.
Mike Graham made a threat to Benoit.
Yes. Positioned themselves and kind of grandstanded the way Benoit had with Sullivan and done what he had with Sullivan's wife, and now trying to take the job that he would have cut his head off and put it on a stick, or I'm pretty sure it's something really over the top like that. Was that statement ever shared with you guys at all? Because part of the rumors and innuendo is that statement is what led to them being able to ask for their release.
Brought up the altercation with Mike, and then Mike had made some kind of a threat, and I believe it was just Benoit, but it may have been others, and that they felt a little uncomfortable. But it was one of those situations where timing was everything, and it was right time, right place. Everything kind of the moon and the stars lined up.
Let me ask you this: when you walk back in the meeting, do you pass a note to Vince? Do you just tell Vince what happened? Do you play that close to the vest, or do you announce it just to him, to the room?
No, God, no. I just talked to Vince about it. I just let Vince know, and he make sure that they're clear. Don't talk anything with them until we get a clue.
So then you get the heads up from the office. Hey, the paperwork checks out. Do you go circle up events and say, let's try to set up a meeting, or what happens next?
We set up a meeting. We're get those guys up here as soon as possible to Stanford. Let's talk to them.
So that's Monday, January 17th. Now let's kind of hit the reset button here. In WCW, this group was called Revolution, and that group was Shane Douglas, Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, which, for those of you ECW fans keeping up, that was what they called the triple threat in ECW before they split up. And then they added Perry Saturn to the group to make it a total of 4 guys. But what we're talking about here is a different set of guys, because Andy Guerrero's in the group, but Shane Douglas is not. So, hearing me through, because I've heard Shane's version, and I think a lot of people have heard Shane's version, what's your version of Shane Douglas being included in this conversation or not?
Shane was not included in the conversation that I had with the 4 guys.
So they never even brought his name up?
They didn't bring his name up until after the fact, when Shane, I guess, had called and said somebody said they were there. They weren't registered under their name, so they couldn't have called and asked for Perry Saturn. But
Perry Saturn's a shoot name. I didn't know that.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
but Eddie Guerrero was, and Dean was. But still,
Was the Sheraton where you guys normally held all of your meetings?
but we didn't. No, that's where we usually stayed. It was a company hotel.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was our go-to hotel there. But no one had brought Shane up into the conversation until those rumblings were made, I guess. And they made it very clear that anybody else that was to say that they were a part of their group, it was just those 4. But the guys came in. I went over and met them at the Sheraton. I believe Jim Ross was with me, and then we brought them back over to the office. on Main Street after hours. It was a little bit later in the evening. I went and had dinner with them at the Sheraton. We talked, but the whole thing was to get them and run events as soon as possible, get everybody going.
So, there's another guy that's not often mentioned in this group, but we should address it. Conan was often discussed as being someone else who wanted out, wasn't happy with the direction of WCW and the way that some of the Hispanic performers were being treated, and he had been with the WWF for a brief hiccup back in the day. Let's talk about that. I don't know when we'll talk about it again, but Conan, of course, was the Hulk Hogan of Mexico. I mean, a huge star.
Oh my God, he was a soap opera star. He was
huge.
He was the biggest star at AAA. He helped put AAA on the map.
A lot of success very early in life. Very muscular guy, phenomenal work, great performer, very colorful. I mean, just big time performer. But somehow, a few years before all of this, he kind of, I don't know. What happened with the Max Moon situation and how all that shook out?
I wasn't there. Conan came in. That was during my hiatus in 1991. To answer the fans asked a question about why I was fired in 1991. It was because I didn't get along.
91.
It was because I didn't get along with the producer that they had hired, and 100% my fault, my ego, my naivete, and just being a cocky young brat that thought he had all the answers and didn't want to get along with anybody. Other than those that I thought I had to.
So in 92, when the Max Moon character is first coming around, you're not there.
I was there right after SummerSlam in Wembley. Was the TV in Hershey. That was my first day back.
And ultimately,
I think Paul Diamond debuted with that shortly after that.
Yeah. So, but you don't know.
I was there for Max Moon. I wasn't there for Conan.
Who was going to be Max Moon originally when you guys pulled his name
Yes.
out of the box? But you weren't there. Maybe it was Finkel that
I
day.
wasn't there yet. Maybe Howard pulled it out and said, "Hey, we've got a Max Moon gimmick." Yeah.
Okay. So this
Available at ProWrestling.com/Bruce Pritchard. Go ahead.
yeah, check out your box of gimmicks too. Everybody needs that. Conan pulled out at the time, asked for his release, but is not a part of the group. Doesn't make his debut with the Radicals. What happened? Where was Conan in all this?
Funny story. I knew you'd get me this. This is a funny story. This is a misunderstanding, but it is kind of comical in its misunderstanding. At the time, I was not watching WCW.
Nobody was. That was the problem.
I get it. But I wasn't watching it, and when I didn't watch it, I wasn't paying a lot of attention to what I wanted to do. I was at the office. And this is the same day. I was meeting with four guys. Hey man, this guy's calling, so on and so forth. Would you please take the call? He just won't get up. And the call is, yo, it's K-Dog. I hadn't watched WCW this time. I knew Conan was Conan. Right. Just charming. Talking to it's K-Dog. I didn't know who the hell K-Dog was. I had no idea who he was. And he talked about being with the NWO, and he's at WCW, and he wants to come in, wants to know if we have anything for him. I told him to send the tape. Send me some pictures of the tape. I had no idea.
You asked Conan, one of the biggest stars in the history of Mexican wrestling.
No, hang on. No, I asked K-Dog.
Okay.
I didn't know it was Conan.
For tapes?
For tapes and pictures and send them in.
And his response was?
I don't really...
It couldn't have been favorable.
Yeah, it wasn't favorable, and it was, I guess very insulting to him. But I didn't put Conan. And again, it's like, you know how you meet somebody in a prior life, and they go somewhere else and they're a different name. You probably run across this all the time.
Yeah, I met Bruce Pritchard.
There you go.
And he used to be Brother Love.
I used to be Brother Love.
He used to be over.
Right, I used to be over. But you know Bruce. So if you were to see me as Brother Love, you'd still call me Bruce.
Right.
Well, if I was to have seen K-Dog at that time, I was still would know as Conan.
Right.
And so you block out. I really didn't mean any disrespect, and it was simply my ignorance of not realizing who the hell K-Dog was. I hung up with him, and Howard Finkel came in and said, "Who was that?" I said, "Somebody named K-Dog." He said, "Conan." I said, No. He said his name was K-Dog. I says, "Yeah, that's Conan."
Wow.
And I felt like an idiot. But I didn't have his number. I was like, okay. But, I asked Vince and them, said, "You guys have any interest in Conan?" They didn't have any interest in him anyway. So I was going to wait for those pictures of tape to come in, I guess. But he called, I guess, Eddie Guerrero later and was appalled that I had asked him to send tape and pictures in, and I never,
So you don't.
Eddie found it kind of funny. He said, "Man, did you really ask Conan to send pictures and tape?" I said, "I didn't, He kept saying K-Dog, and I didn't put the two together. And it was one of those days."
So just to be clear, because we're going to get hate tweets on this.
Oh, I'm sure.
You don't dislike Conan. Conan's not a poor performer to you. You're not shitting on him.
No.
You just didn't correlate the two.
No, when if I saw Conan on TV and he was going by Charlie Chan, I would say, "Oh, that's Conan." I hadn't watched. I didn't know he had changed his name to K-Dog.
Right.
I had no clue at all. And to me, it was Conan. And he didn't say, "This is Conan." This is K-Dog. Sorry.
You're getting a receipt on his podcast next week.
I will, but accept my apology now. And, I swear to God, meant no disrespect whatsoever.
Why do you think there was no interest from Vince and company in him?
You'd have to ask Vince. I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying.
There was here are 4 guys available, and how many guys can you bring in at one time too? I think that may be an issue as well.
Well, I get that it's a lot of folks, but it seems like if he really is one of the biggest stars in the history of Mexico, you try to find a spot for him.
Maybe you do, but they didn't.
Okay. Why do you think there was no interest in Shane Douglas? Had Shane burned the bridge when he was there before, and then goes out and kind of smashes WWE a little bit?
Well, that's an interesting one too. Shane never called me. I never talked to Shane. And Shane, I believe, had called JR and might have had some discussions with JR. But in the situation as far as those 4 guys coming in, Shane was never, he wasn't a part of that from their side. He wasn't a part of that from the presentation of, hey.
But what I'm asking, though, is not their presentation as a group. You guys didn't sign them necessarily because they were part of the group, right? You thought, hey, this is a chance to take from WCW and add to WWF. What would it really matter if it was, as a group or individually? Why wouldn't a Shane Douglas be of interest?
I can't answer that. Other than, Shane didn't have a great run when he was there as Dean Douglas. And
so you don't remember a specific conversation about him?
I don't, because I wasn't involved in any of the correspondence with Shane at that time.
Okay.
And Shane.
And who was that through?
That was through, I believe, JR.
Okay, so JR was talking to Shane. And then
had a conversation with Shane. Okay. I don't know that they were.
They had at least one phone call.
Yeah.
And then you hung up on Conan and told him to send a tape.
Never hung up on Conan. I did ask him to send the table pictures.
Okay. So now you meet with these
I
guys.
asked him, hey, dog.
Right.
Not Conan. It said, hey, it's Conan.
Do you meet with these guys at the Sheraton with Vince? Are you in the room? Is it?
Listen, Conrad, I said I met with him. I think JR was with me. Then we came over to the office.
I'm with you, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, when this meeting happens, is it happening individually with Vince?
Yes.
Okay. And that happens at headquarters.
Yes.
And it's in his office.
In Vince's office.
Okay. And one by one, was there ever, as they meet with him, was there ever any sort of thought amongst you or JR or Vince that this is a, package deal, gotta sign them all?
No, because they all made it clear that they would all like to come. And from us, I can give you my vantage point. I wanted all four. Vince wanted all four. JR wanted all four. I think the funniest comment that was made was when Vince finally met Eddie Guerrero, and he walked around the corner. He looked at me and says, "He's so tiny." And I remember saying, "Yeah, but he's the Mexican Shawn Michaels." And Vince just kind of shook his head the way that he did. So tiny. I don't think Vince was expecting. Eddie was not the tallest guy
But he was jacked.
in the arena. He was a big boy in heart, and he was he looked like $1 million, man. Eddie was one of those guys, and his personality was 20 feet tall, and his ability.
Do you,
His personality was just huge.
did you think when you first met all of them in person, was that the first time you'd met each of them, or had you met them prior?
I met, obviously, Perry. I met Benoit, known Chris kind of over the years, back and forth a little bit.
Where, though? Where was
Just
you?
in Canada and along the road, you'd be in the same town sometimes, crisscrossing, see each other in airports and stuff. I was always friendly with Chris.
Sure.
So I had known Chris from before. I knew Perry, and I'd never met Eddie before. And
Coming out of that initial meeting, you were most impressed with Eddie?
impressed?
Well,
I was impressed with all of them. I
well,
really,
but like this guy, this is the guy. I mean, in every group, there's a guy.
I'll tell you, the guy when I saw Eddie Guerrero was when he was with Art Barr, not Machi.
Yeah.
And those guys were on fire in Mexico. And it was the event that they had in California, big pay-per-view.
When worlds collide.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just became a big fan of Eddie's at that time. And I'd always been a fan of Art Barr. I thought Art Barr was tremendous.
But you knew Art Barr had a record that maybe Vince would be scared of?
Yeah, Art wouldn't fit into the culture of WWF. But Eddie being Hispanic as well.
What does that mean?
What?
Art wouldn't fit the culture.
Art had a rape charge. It just wouldn't fit into that culture.
So did Jerry Lawler.
Yeah.
So
Jerry was a quitter. I think Art did some time with him.
I don't remember. I'm just busting balls.
You are busting.
I'm just saying when you say it didn't fit in the
He
culture.
wouldn't have fit into the culture. Jerry Lawler wouldn't have fit into the culture.
Murdered a girl.
Been accused of murder.
Okay. Well, you said a rape charge. Let's talk about a murder charge.
Okay, a murder charge. You said murder.
Okay.
I said charge.
I'm just saying, it's a little
See,
weird.
again, that's where you leave off words and it becomes a whole different conversation.
You don't think murdered a chick?
I don't know. I wasn't there.
Oh my God. Okay.
I wasn't there.
Okay. I didn't ask if you witnessed it. I didn't say did you push her down. I'm not saying that. Let's move along. So,
Was this one of those questions I'm dodging?
Yes.
Okay.
Bastard. Will you just give me a straight answer? Did you think Eddie Guerrero was the big money draw potential of the board, or did you think it was Benoit?
I thought it was Benoit. I thought it was Benoit and Saturn.
Okay.
And I was a big fan of Perry. I just loved Perry's look.
You thought it was Saturn based on his crazy look and style that he got over in WCW.
Yes.
And he thought it was Benoit based on his motion.
More Perry from that Eliminator days. Him and Cronus.
Are you putting ECW over a
No,
little bit?
I'm putting Perry Saturn over.
Okay.
And, Perry's just had a unique look and an intensity about him. He had a very unique look and style.
I don't disagree.
He was different.
I was a big fan.
Yeah, I was different.
But okay, so you come out of this meeting, and I assume in this meeting you guys talk more about would you have us. At this point, there's a real dollar amount. We're well past, 10 dates for $1,500 or whatever the original old school Vince McMahon contracts were. Now we're into...
No, we're into downside guarantees at this point. Yeah.
Do they all ask for the same thing? I'm not asking what they got. I'm going to, but did they all ask?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what they got, so I'll save you asking me the question. I don't think it's really anybody's business, personally. But they didn't ask for the same amounts.
So they okay.
They didn't ask for amounts. They asked for what we paid. They said, hey, I want X amount of dollars.
So did they make any demands for a number of dates, or just I want to be here?
No, they want to be there, and I want to say that each guy reiterated to Vince, hey, Ken, you don't want us. Cool, please do something for us.
Do you think?
And all of those guys also felt that we really only wanted Vince.
Because he was the champ.
Yes, yeah. And we really and truly wanted all of them. There was different level of interest in each guy.
Was there any, obviously there was a lawsuit in place, but somebody's going to ask, so I'm going to ask anyway. Was there any idea or inclination to say, hey, bring the belt? I know Rick did that, and there was a lawsuit, and there was a precedent set. But somebody on Twitter is going to say, why didn't you ask if he'd bring the belt?
Didn't want it.
And you didn't refer to him as the WCW heavyweight champion either, because at this point you're not acknowledging the competition because you're in first place.
Right.
So as a rule of thumb, for those of you keeping score at home, correct me if I'm wrong here, Bruce, if you're in second place, you're constantly calling out number one. If you're in first place, number two doesn't exist.
Seems that way, yeah.
Okay, all right. So I do find it curious, and I know you don't want to talk